People have to have good communication. You have to win friends and influence people instantly. The most successful CPOs that I know, they have fantastic soft skills.
Welcome to the Circuit Magazine, the #1 source of information on protection matters, the industry-leading magazine for all security professionals who want to stay ahead of the game.
Networking as an operator, but also as a grey professional. Today, we're going to be speaking with the one and only John Morrison, founder of CP World and many other talents. And we're going to look at how meeting face-to-face, networking and getting your career going can be a challenge for some operators and how to improve it through the art of networking. I'm here with Elijah Shaw. And I guess, first of all, let's test the premise. Elijah, is there a problem with EP networking? And actually, do people find remaining the grey professional whilst networking a challenge?
Well, this one's easy. In our profession, we're good at protection work. We're good at security consulting. We're not necessarily good at networking, all the things that are involved in that. So it's sometimes a little bit counterintuitive. We're used to being in the shadows. We're used to being behind the scenes. And by its very definition, networking has to have it so that we forge connections. And sometimes it kind of goes against, maybe our ingrained principles. Now, as far as the great professional, I really think it's a matter of preference. And also, of course, it's what posture is going to best serve your market, what posture is going to best serve the client type. However, I think that there are these days many different opportunities, many different types of clients, many different sectors to work in. And so everything is not cloak and dagger, but at the same time, we need to make sure that when we're approaching things, particularly the areas of the marketplace that are more ostentatious and more over the top and more overt, that we still do that understanding the totalities of the principle of protection. And so once we, again, understand the landscape, we can walk in and out of these different circles. We can walk in and out of these different rooms. We can interact with these different types of protectors and just pick the best posture that suits the protectee and the assignment.
I get that, but I wonder, have things developed so as networking online is also really, really key for protectors. And I mean, how can they network online, especially remaining the grey professional? How does that differ to networking events?
Well, I really think it depends on the individual protector's, skill sets. Some are more technically proficient. You can imagine that those that are younger in age, grew up with the computers. They grew up with social media. They grew up, texting as easily as they would dial a phone. So, they find it easier to gravitate and form bonds and interactions on social media. And some that might be more old school, require that if it's not on the telephone, that face-to-face, particularly when it comes to the networking part, because you want to look at an individual in their eye, you want to feel the firm handshake, and you want to get a sense of a person's character, which you can't necessarily do via online networking. However, there's an ease to online networking, and just the ability to be able to have conferences that attendees from all over the world can attend, to interact with individuals that you might not normally be able to because you're not in the same physical presence. So there are pros and cons, I suppose, to both of them. But I think the well-rounded protector doesn't discount anything. They might use things that kind of play to their strengths, but they're definitely there's a path to success with all of those.
And, it is a great pleasure to cross-pollinate, cross-collaborate with John today. And I know, great friend of the industry. it's going to be very, very interesting to get his hands-on experience, because balancing being an operator, a grade professional, if you will, and an excellent networker, it's certainly something that a lot of our listeners will want to emulate. So let's get into it. John Morrison and the subject of networking as a grade professional.
And now, let's meet one of the contributors to the Circuit magazine.
Networking success as an operator. Today, we're delighted to welcome John Morrison, director and founder of Close Protection World, and many other hats. It's a pleasure to have you on. How are you doing?
Phelim, good morning. Thanks very much. Thanks very much for asking me to come in and chat about this. I'll be honest, a little bit nervous. First time I've ever done a podcast, so please be gentle with me. It's probably first time I've been interviewed without actually being cautioned. So a little bit nervous.
Oh, okay. Yes, absolutely. Well, we're very much thematic based here, so we'll stick to the theme and we'll ride through very, very nicely. So on that note, we're talking networking as an operator. What's the problem that you see that needs to really be solved in that regard?
Okay, I believe that the majority of our industry, they come from the armed forces or the blue light services, and they're never really kind of trained or have been given an opportunity to understand how to network. And as a result, they go to conferences, trade shows, etc., without any real preparation, and they think they can, hide in the corner behind their pint and just share war stories with people that they know. I mean, you've seen this yourself, Phelim. You're an expert in networking and creating these fantastic events. It's very common for people just to not to mix and to stay in their comfort zone of working, of speaking to people that they know. And the objective of going to these conferences is the exact opposite. You can always come back to these folks, but go out, mix, network, and meet new people. So it's about coming out of your comfort zone, but also understanding how to network, because there is a little bit more to it than just simply just going up to someone and throwing a card in their face,
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I have visions of people just immediately handing a card at the beginning. Anyway, we'll get into that. But what about you? Obviously, I know why you're here, but where does your passion for this come from?
Well, I've always enjoyed networking. In a former career, I was trained in social engineering, how to meet people and infiltrate organizations. So I've always been interested, a little bit of an extrovert. I like to meet people, and we're just really I just want to give everyone a good opportunity to do well in our industry, to be honest. And hence the reason why we do close protection conferences. It's a great opportunity for people to meet up and secure future work, because it's all about keeping your diary busy throughout the year, by meeting people and generating new contracts. So I just want to kind of help people, to do well in our industry, and the best way to do that is, of course, to go to conferences and to meet new people.
Yeah, absolutely, and those new people, the fresh people, as well as, of course, your friends and favorites is very key. But then, obviously, that seems very evident to you and to me and to some listeners. But what about the uninitiated? What about the grey professional who's not really put themselves out there, in any way? What should they better understand?
Yeah. I think and I was thinking about this because obviously I knew we were gonna do the podcast. I always like people to understand the reason why they do something. Now, it's not ideal, but in certain close protection situations, a company will have to deploy a subcontractor, a close protection operator that they may have never met. So it's not ideal, but it does happen in certain situations where there is a sudden surge of manpower. So it's absolutely essential that people understand that a CV is one dimensional. Okay, you have to go to a conference and you have to meet people, because the buyers, i.e., the company owners, they need to trust you. And the best way of doing that is meeting them informally in a networking environment, because ultimately, let's be honest here, you are a business asset. You are going to represent their company. They want to see you face to face. They want to see the way you talk, your image, the way you carry yourself, because a few weeks down the line, you're actually going to be representing their company. And it's really important that they understand that everything they do during that networking encounter, that building that relationship, the company owner is thinking, can I use this operator? Can I deploy this operator on the ground to represent my company? So image is really important, and a CV just doesn't do that. It's very one dimensional.
Yeah, like that one-dimensional CV and networking as an in-person CV. I think that's a really nice way to look at it. Yeah. So let's unpack this topic. And I mentioned before the grey professional, the grey man, the grey woman. Why does that image persist? Is it because it needs to still persist? And if so, how can such a person start to network? Because surely there's someone that's so grey that they can't just hand you a business card. But I don't think in the private sector that's really the case. Everyone has a story to tell or some image to put out there. What are your impressions of the modern grey person?
Yeah, okay. Our industry in general attracts people who are extroverts and who have large egos. I mean, let's not sugarcoat it. Our industry, and which can be seen in some marketing for certain training companies. Bright lights, shiny cars. In the real world, a true professional, like you said, Phelim, is the grey man, is the quietest person in the corner. Okay. And you can still be a quiet grey person, but you can still be you can have your ego in control, but you are quiet and the grey man. Now, so you're asking how can this individual sort of network within an environment? Is that the question? Was it, Phelim?
Yeah, and maybe by extension somehow put themselves out there. We'll get on to somehow marketing themselves, but in a networking sense, how do they even introduce themselves? Hi, I'm this person working for I can't tell you, and my skill set is I can't tell you either.
It's yeah, you're absolutely right, and as you know, you've got introverts and extroverts. I think the ideal combination would be to have someone who's quietly confident, introvert. That's generally sometimes the best CPOs. You don't need to be loud and brash at all. It's really awkward, isn't it? It's really awkward trying to go up to someone. It harps back to when we were younger, where God, you're in a nightclub, you're in a social environment, and you have to go and speak to someone. You try doing that in a corporate environment, suit and tie, where everyone has business cards. Yeah, it is absolutely awkward, and it does come naturally to some people, and other people, they find it really difficult. I think it's about just that initial approach is to have like a theme type approach, is to try and break the ice by talking about something that's happening at the event. What did you think of the did you get a chance to listen to the drone defense keynote speaker? Just a kind of topic relevant introduction, be it in the coffee queue, be it at lunchtime or something like that. Now, also a good opportunity is to sit at a shared table. Don't go to an empty row. Go to where there are people there. Is anyone sitting here? Do you mind if I sit here? But it's just once people get over that initial introduction, that small couple of questions at the start. Has anyone sat here? Or what time does it start? Then you've broken the ice, and then people will then come out of the shell and start talking. So lunchtime, sitting at a table with other people, if it's one of these shared tables where you stand up, say, oh, no, do you mind if I join you? And that's what you have to do. And people are not naturally, some people don't like doing that, and I totally understand why.
And I guess if you do that and you do a bit of listening as well, you can start to gauge, hang on, can I tell these people a bit more about myself? Or have I just landed somewhere where I really shouldn't be telling anyone anything about what I'm doing? Because that must be a bit hard. Like, you can't just open with, hey, my clearance is this, and my last hot zone that I was in last. So maybe a productive way for me to phrase that as a question would be, what are the sorts of lines of inquiry that the grey person can take to find out whether or not this group is sort of worthy, appropriate, for them to introduce themselves?
Well, I would say that if this grey person has security clearance and they're that concerned, I mean, I would say not to overthink it, not to overcomplicate just chatting with someone and discussing with someone. It is very subtle, right? It is tricky, and the chances are that the table we have joined or the group we have joined, they're all talking. Because they've already broke it. Well, they probably know each other anyway. So they're spinning bits over a pint, whilst having their sandwich or something like that. It's very awkward, So, like I said, first approach, do you mind if I join you? Yeah, and then just use your opening. Hey, simple ones. Hey, have you travelled far? Are you guys trained now? Because I know what you're asking here is, you've got people who are experienced. Now, those people who are experienced can read the room. They can read who's who, and generally the loudest people are probably the people you want to try to avoid, right?
Yeah. No, and that probably holds as much value for the new professional as the seasoned but grey professional, because I can imagine a new professional trying to break into the industry, not really having any massive anecdotes of the time they were in X country and so on, right? So I guess what do we have for the new entrants? Because it must be difficult, especially if other people already know each other.
Yes.
Hey, what if you're from the police and everyone else is from the military? I mean, that's that might be a bit difficult when you come in to share stories.
Yeah. Well, people like to share stories, ask them, hey, I've just arrived, I'm still serving in the police and the military, or, I'm working in the private sector. Are you trained? Are you guys trained? How long have you been in the industry? These people, one thing CPOs like to do, and I'm laughing here because I know many CPOs, they love to tell a bit, okay? They love to spin a story and they give a few war stories. So, social engineer yourself. Social engineer yourself into that conversation. Ask them to talk about themselves. People love to talk about themselves, right? Especially CPOs at networking events. So, to get in and to start building that rapport is to say, is to ask them how long they've been in the industry. That's a good one. Another one is, who did you train with? Do you have any recommendations? I see there's a lot of trade stalls there. Is there any trade stands you'd recommend? But get that. If the grey person doesn't want to speak, then guess what? Ask the other person to speak. They will fill the void. They will fill that silence. And I used to say this on when I was training close protection is. The old stickle bricks. I don't know if people remember the old stickle bricks.
Oh yeah, I do.
My age is as you meet people in the industry, everyone's adults. They can see good attributes and poor attributes when they meet someone very, very quickly, be it be it the way they speak, their confidence, their ego, whatever it is. And what I always say to people is take the best parts of people when you meet someone and there's parts of them you really like, kind of almost steal that, borrow that, and then conversely, if there's parts that you don't like about that person, think, why didn't I like that? So you're almost building up this persona, and that's the kind of thing you can do whilst networking as well. Is quite quickly, regardless if you're an introvert or an extrovert, you'll soon find out what type of person that is. What can I learn from this person?
That's nice. What can I learn from this person? Because of course that and that ties back to what you said at the beginning. Some people just thrust a bunch of cards in someone's face, which isn't adding value, is it? And but actually, what can I learn about this person? Gives them an opportunity to speak. It makes them feel valued. Yeah. Although it could also make them feel interrogated. Like, and what is your favorite color? Okay, fine. Are you trying to build a profile on me? So I guess there's a balance with all of this. And I honestly don't watch these dating coach advisors, but I feel that maybe there's something to it there as well. Yeah. All right. So changing tack though, let's say. Networking in an in-person context is one thing. It's also quite definable, isn't it? I was in X room, I met X, Y, and Z people, other people were around. Yeah. Why is it then not possible to do that, or is it possible to do that virtually? Because I know that some people have an issue with putting all of themselves out there. But yet some of the best opportunities have been found on LinkedIn, and online. I'll be interested in your thoughts about, still networking, but maybe not giving all of yourself.
I believe the online networking is part of the process. It's a part of the process to get the contract at the end, full-time job, whatever it may be. I am a firm, but I love social media. I live and breathe social media on a daily basis. But going back to the point about the company, you are going to represent that company, like I said, be it the way you look, the way you talk, your confidence. Now, I took a note there about soft skills. Ultimately, when you are speaking to a person, either be it, via a Zoom call or online video or face-to-face, it's all about soft skills, especially in the European executive protection sector. 99.999% of the work we do on a daily basis is communication. Now, without sounding, people have to have good communication. You have to win friends and influence people instantly. That the most successful CPOs that I know, they have fantastic soft skills. They're good chat, they've got charisma, they listen. Now, so when you are at a networking event, unbeknown to you, subconsciously within that conversation, they're assessing, can this individual, can I send him to Paris? Can I send him to Edinburgh? Can he generate and create a security plan? And that is all about liaison and communication. So there's no way of getting away from this, that you have to have those soft skills. Now, almost when you come off the plane, you've got to create that instant communication and relationship with the driver, the concierge. It's everything we do is about relationship building. You have to have the skills to do that. A networking environment demonstrates your ability to do that. There's no way of getting away from that. The online question, like I said, I think is part of the process. But I do ultimately believe that at one point the buyer and the seller, i.e. the new CPO and the established company, they have to meet at some point. They have to sit down and have a face to face. There's no way of getting away from that. But the LinkedIn, the following people, the commenting builds a persona. It builds a persona, and then the final part of getting your contract, of completing the deal, i.e., from a buyer and a seller, is to go and meet that person over a coffee. That is it. That, once you get that face to face with for the 5-10 minutes, that's it. The company will say, okay, I like this person, let's get him on the books, let's deploy him next week. Really, really important. And I don't think there's ever a way of getting away from that, Phelim.
No, because then it can be complementary, can't it? Because yes. I know you've been big on online networking for some time, as dare I say, I'm wangling it in here, but you're the covert monkey. Tell us about that, because obviously lots of people are familiar with today's platforms, but how has that journey been for you, especially online?
About 10, 15 years ago, a good friend of mine and business partner, Mali, he called me. He says, John, there's a new website. It's just taken off in America. I think we should do it. Now, Mali's always been an online entrepreneur, but there was no social networking at that point. And I says, what is this? What is this thing you're talking about, Mali? And he says, it's Facebook. It's absolutely going to explode. And, I kind of chuckled to myself. I says, yeah, whatever. That's never going to happen. He says, no, John, listen, people love talking. People create forums. There's chat rooms. You ask questions. And I thought, you know what, Mali, you're onto something here. So we created closeprotectionworld.com. It was an online forum. And it really took off, really took off really quickly. And we were working at the same time, the boys at BBA, Shaun and John, they created the BBA forum, working the doors. My handle on there was Covert Monkey, just, as a hark back to my time in the military police. And it just went from one thing to the next. And then eventually I says, you know what, let's start to bring this to life. Let's start to do online, let's do conferences. So we hired out the Union Jack Club. This was like maybe 10 years ago. We started doing these conferences. And I says, you know what, let's get some exhibitors, let's get some stands. And it was all about networking. It was all about bringing people together. And back then, you had this, the internet was a different place. You had this romantic view of people sharing code with each other, people sharing ideas. It was a very positive environment in the forums generally. So I thought, let's bring this positivity of helping each other. Let's bring it to life, and let's put people face to face, and it was fantastic. And you've probably been there yourself, there's a username, and actually I'm kind of reminiscing here. Our first events had people's username underneath their name, and you had that eureka moment. It says, "Oh, you're Covert Monkey. Oh yeah, you're Nomad. Or you're Mali," and then people would just laugh. Like, "Oh my God, we've been chatting for months and months," and there they are. They're now face to face, in a real world environment. So yeah, that's where we came from, our humble beginnings. Unfortunately now, a lot of forums, they struggle, because the first thing people do when they wake up is they go on Facebook. So, we've ported across onto Facebook. Close Protection World is now on Facebook, but we still have the forum, and it's still there. Probably needs a little bit of a tidy and a little bit of dust off, but it's still there.
And so that's actually testament to how you have balanced your professional persona and the need to network, because you're I hope you don't mind me saying, you don't like to put all of yourself out there, do you?
No, and I challenge anyone to find any pictures of me, online. I just something that I've kind of restricted, and this is the first time. And like I said, thanks for going easy on me, Phelim. You are a consummate professional in what you do. We had a chat. You warmed me up before we started recording, and I thank you for that. Yeah, it's just something I've never really, I've never broken cover, to use an ops term. At the moment, maybe one day I might, but at the moment, I'm quite happy being on the front line, working, day to day within the close protection sector.
Yeah, and that's probably really reassuring for some people who are thinking, oh, I cannot start generating business online for myself. I cannot put myself out there in any form.
Mm-hmm.
But they could be the counterpart to Covert Monkey,
Yeah, overt monkey. Yeah,
Overt Monkey. There you go. And you know what? An interesting parallel for the world of cyber. They still use their handles,
mm-hmm.
and they talk about each other, even in person, with their handles.
That's funny. It's brilliant. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, rather interestingly, it started referring to me with my company name, and I was like, oh, so that's my handle. Okay, right. I should have picked something like Covert Monkey. So we're helping people and our readership and listenership. We're helping them to network more effectively whilst they are operators. Now, a short reflection. Of course, people will remember we have twice had on Mr. Craig McKim, the business development and networking guru over in the States, and that's great. And Craig distills a lot of literature out there, a lot of videos and methodologies for this. But I'm really interested in this particular angle because you are a great professional operator, although you put yourself out there in other ways. So I think this sits nicely in that canon of work. And if anyone listens to the Craig McKim interviews alongside this, I think that will be nicely top and tailed. So there's the element of networking in person and adding value. There's the element of advertising yourself online and networking. But I'd be interested in sort of hearing where you think this might go next, especially if, and this is, I suppose, a more futurology type question, if the world gets a bit hotter in some respects, not temperature wise, how are we going to continue this? Because we're going to have to network and put ourselves out there, and then thirdly, be very, very selective. How are we going to foster that selectiveness in a more interesting world?
Okay, the close protection industry is very much on reputation and recommendations. The network that goes for, be it London, UK wide, Europe, or even globally. And this is where, and that network is generally built up by knowing people from a previous career. For example, within my security company, the staff that we have know people throughout the world in many embassies, and that's because at one point they worked with each other in the military. Fast forward 10 years, these individuals are now at our head of security sector, head of EP departments, embassy security managers. So you have this network like Google Maps, pop, 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 pop. All these dots appear, all these pins appear throughout the globe. And they are people that you used to work with at some point. So you reach out to them and you ask, look, you're the security manager of Kinshasa. You've been there. Can you recommend a security provider? Yeah, sure. Hey, John, look, we use this company, the FCDO cleared. We use them. I know the company. So it's very risky as a business to use companies that have not been vetted. And are not recommended. Now, this is where the cream really does rise to the top. Is if any security companies have been authorized or have been used previously, then you reach out to your network and you ask, look, does anyone have any recommendations for secure ground transportation in New Zealand or in Hong Kong, for example? This is where the experience really comes forward because you have someone there you've used before, and obviously as a business, you obviously have to do your due diligence. You create contracts, you get insurance checked, and you check their SOPs to make sure that they are professional. So Yeah, globally, for sure. That's how it should work. Is using your existing network, which comes from your previous career, be it in the police or be it in the military. You know.
Which then brings another question to mind. Not exactly networking, so I might be going a bit off topic. But do you think we're going to be doing a lot more vetting, especially of third parties and so on? And what does that look like? Is that sort of we had Alan Sakella, who's billed as the human lie detector. We had him on. He spent a long time with lie detectors and such a skill set. But do you think we're going to, well, on the one hand, do more formal vetting, finding out about potential weaknesses, potential X, Y, Z, and then we're going to have to do it more on the hoof when we're vetting companies, aren't we?
Yeah. This is a difference between a company that has no infrastructure, has no governance, is dare I say it, a one-man band. You have security companies throughout the world who are one deep, and they don't have governance, they don't have infrastructure, they don't have ISO qualifications. There is nothing there. It is a one-man band. Then you have the opposite end of the spectrum. You have really swept up professional companies that have already vetted their suppliers within the regions. That's the way it should be. That is there is no other way to do it. Risk consultancy companies, for example, in the US, they subcontract to companies in Europe. They subcontract to companies in London. If that company is professional, then they will not create a vendor. We're using the term vendor. There is a vendor relationship there. And I know that my security company, we get vetted every year. Company comes over and they check everything. That's the way it should be. And so that's B2B, that's business to business. Your vendor has to be vetted. You need to look at their insurance, their SOPs, their cars, everything has to be vetted, and that is done certainly by professional companies. Now, when it comes to using individuals, then again, security companies, they need to have. We're all familiar with BS 7858. It's a minimum standard required to vet a personnel before they go on the ground. Listen, that takes time, and a lot of the times CP tasks come in at very short notice. But this is where, and I'm all for, I'm smiling here, I'm all for SI, I'm all for governance, because it does separate the professional companies with the one-man bands, dare I say it, and on that note, actually, I have invited the SIA to come and speak to the conference, actually, and they're going to speak. I'm trying to do a dedicated workshop for company directors and shareholders to meet each other and to speak direct with the SIA in an attempt to do exactly what you're talking about, is increasing the quality of the companies that that operate, especially in the UK. Very important.
Well, that sounds like a productive session, because I know it hasn't always been productive in other contexts that I've seen. So that sounds very productive. I think people will agree, because I always get fan mail every time I talk about regulation. Two topics, right? Two topics. One is robotics. If I suggest that a bodyguard might have a robotic buddy to watch the doors, and I get loads of fan mail. And then the other one is regulation. Hot topics. Although to the outside world, the regulation topic might not sound as exciting as robots.
Phelim, I'm with you with the regulation thing, because companies that are professional, they have governance and they have internal procedures, should not be worried about governance. The people that are worried about governance is the people that do not have any internal infrastructure. So believe me, I don't know if I get any fan mail from this, but I would like professional companies to be regulated, because they have nothing to hide. So yeah, I'm with you on regulation, Phelim.
Absolutely. And I'll throw a bone to the other side of the camp. I, of course, acknowledge that there's barriers of entry when you're starting a business, and so we have to take that into consideration.
Okay, fair one.
It doesn't seem fair that you have to get a license to paint walls in America. There are limits, right? There are limits. So just balancing that. So that brings us on to the question of where can they network, and I'm very much looking forward to CP World. Would you be able to tell us a little bit about when it's going to take place, what they should expect, and how to get involved?
Yeah, for sure. I'd like to say firstly, that you are the conference network expert. You do this for a living. I've been to many of your conferences. They are fantastic, and I do highly recommend people go to them. The one that we do, it's coming up in November. It's the Remembrance Weekend. It's Saturday the 12th of November. Usual place. It's in the Victory Services Club. It's doors open at 10, and we're all the way through till 10 p.m. Yeah, it's a great event. Yeah, lots happening, lots of networking, and I could ream off this stuff. We have companies from all over the world attending. We have, which is very humbling. We have probably the top 6-8 CP companies in London. The company owners who I know personally will be attending, to show support for the event, to support me and the team at these events. So, we have a lot of buyers there, and it's free. It's free if you're serving MOD or blue light services.
Wonderful. Yeah. And of course I'll be there with my circuit hat on. And I really enjoyed it last time. I thought it was great, and I really enjoyed seeing everyone there. So I am looking forward to seeing all of you there too, as well as, of course, you in particular, John. So what's next for you? Are you continuing to be an operator and network and mobilize people?
Yeah, I mean, I wear various hats that you've alluded to. Close protection world is a real passion of mine. I really enjoy it. I'm also a director, shareholder of Excellencia Global, and the managing director who's running the company at the moment does a fantastic job. Absolute, amazing. What he does, a lot of time to focus on other things. One of them obviously being close protection world, and the other one is to be on the circuit. I'm still on the circuit. I am now. I think I'm on day 21 of a 40-day job. So yeah, I love being on the circuit, and I also love training and passing on all the knowledge that I have to people. So for me, looking forward actually off to Qatar. Very lucky. It's one of the areas I've sort of moved into recently is major sporting events. So
of course,
yeah, I've done the last couple of World Cups, Champions League final, all through good friend of mine, Leo Muller down at Arslan Security. He sends me out to these events. So yeah, I've got Qatar coming up. In fact, funny enough, I'm flying out to Qatar on the next day after the conference. And when Leo asked me, I says I can't go on the 12th. I can only fly on the 13th. So literally, I'll be packing up, unwinding at the end of the event, of course, and then the next afternoon flying out to Qatar for a month. So yeah, busy for me for the next 6 months at least.
Fantastic, and you're going to soak up that well, for us, winter sun, I suppose. That's going to be quite a boost.
Well, it does look very glamorous. Unfortunately, the price of things over there it's been alluded to that we're probably going to be staying in a barracks style bunk bed environment. Which, hey, listen, I've woken up in worse places. That's for sure.
Fantastic, and I'm loath to do the Jeremy Clarkson on that bombshell, but on that bombshell, I think this has been a fantastic look at the world of networking effectively as an operator. So a very important facet that will excite all of our listeners, who are mostly all operators, with some, of course, consultants and corporate security leaders, involved. But John, it's been fantastic to have you on. Thank you very much. And this has been another fantastic edition of the Circuit Magazine podcast. Well, thank you very much, John. I am very much looking forward to seeing you at your event, at the CPU World event. And we have a stand there. We're looking forward to seeing everyone there as well. And, what a good topic, because, it's all well and good to pick up, let's say, a book or perhaps a YouTube video that talks about networking in a generic fashion. But I don't think it's addressed enough. What if the way in which we network has to change slightly because of our industry? Now, of course, there are different subsectors of our industry who can network in different ways. I'm perfectly happy with that. But I think, nevertheless, it's a very, very important topic, because that's how a lot of people, if not all of our colleagues, find employment and find success. Well, talking about success, I'm back with Elijah Shaw, the one and only again, of course. And, you've had some exciting events, talk about events and training going on recently. I saw so many great reports over social media, lovely pictures. How has the ICON Celebrity Protection course been?
Well, I just wrapped up day 10 of the course, and it was 10 days of class time. However, it was months and months of prep time. So I can officially say I am exhausted. With that said, it was an amazing course. We had a great turnout, but more importantly, the students were very engaged, very interactive, asked a lot of questions. And I think they felt that they left the class with way more knowledge and understanding of the industry than they came in with. And, and we were blessed to the fact that we had a very diverse group. I mean, we had business owners, newcomers in the industry. We even had a few former federal agents that were taking the class. So being able to share something with those and learn something at the same time, because I learned something as well, is a real benefit. And the class went extremely well. In fact, as soon as I wrapped the class, I had to jump on a plane, and I'm heading overseas.
Wow.
And I'm looking forward to that long flight, because I am going to be knocked out the entire trip.
Absolutely. And you deserve a bit of a rest. I know you're probably working, but what else have you got coming up?
So what's next up for me is in December, I'm going to be heading down to Vegas once again for the International Protective Security Board, ISPB. They have their conference. So looking forward to making it to the Close Protection Conference. It was a great time. I attended last year, had a chance to speak on a panel, and also catch up with some individuals I hadn't seen in a very long time. So it was great to be around community. And then also during that same period, there's the EP Forum, the Executive Protection Forum, that gets put on by Byron Rogers and Christian West and a host of others. I had the opportunity to speak last year, going to join them again for that. So December will be kind of action-packed, but it'll all be geographically located in the same place, which is in Vegas. I don't gamble, so I'll leave there with all of my money intact, but also having the opportunity to catch up with some great friends. So I do invite everybody down if they want to come down, and I invite you down as well. So maybe we can get you down here this year.
I mean, I actually plan on attending. I was there 2016, 17, 19, and it'll be a great pleasure to come back. I saw the EP League event that you're also participating in. I saw that on Instagram Live last time, which was amazing. Yeah, especially a lot of people, will want to be there in person this year. So if you are going, do let us know. But yes, that brings us back to the topic of today: networking as an operator, and to a many extent, a great professional. So it's going to be absolutely vital that we brush up on these skills, and I'm very much looking forward to putting them into action at the EP World Forum on Saturday, the 11th, in London with John Morrison. So, John, thank you for coming on to today's session. It was great to have you on, great to collaborate. And from Elijah and myself, this has been another fantastic edition of the Circuit Magazine podcast.
You have been listening to the Circuit Magazine podcast. Be sure to subscribe and be sure to not miss an episode.